Hello, good morning, and welcome to another episode of What Do We Do Now? A conversation about the live events industry. Today I am joined by Joe. Hello, Joe. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Joe Chilvers, head of production for First and Clive agencies.
Marvelous. Thank you, Joe. Great to talk to you. Let's start with an easy one. How did you get your start in the live events industry? Tell us a little bit of your origin story.
So I've always considered myself a very fortunate person because from the age of 13, 14, I've always known what I wanted to do with my life. How about that? That's not actually been that I wanted to be a production manager. That was at 14. I wanted to be a sound engineer for Metallica. So
Brilliant.
the
How
path
did that come
has
about?
somewhat, yeah, it's changed somewhat, but definitely I was in a holiday camp with my parents, and every night there was a theatre production. And whilst my family were all busy watching the theatre production, I was busy watching the sound engineer working out that what he was doing and thinking that's what I want to do with my life. Um, so
Amazing,
yeah, it's
brilliant. Where did it go wrong?
I know, I know. Who knows? But yeah, as I've investigated it further, I've just discovered a love more and more of that process. So continued
Brilliant.
along that path.
Very cool. And then another, hopefully quite an easy one. Like, what was your favorite job and why?
I find this actually a really tough question, and it's one I've been asked before. It sparks a whole host of internal deliberation, and the last time I got asked it, it was weeks of toing and froing between different shows. But the conclusion came to is that I actually don't have one. What I really enjoy are the problem solving aspect of events.
Oh,
So
cool. So it's
working
more of a process, a part of the process, rather than like an entire job specifically, you would say.
Absolutely, absolutely, and whether it's a small little one-on-one engagement or 700 presentations over a few days, to just being able to deliver them without having sight of them beforehand, that process and that challenge is what gets me, and I feel it now of just that puts your hairs on the end of your skin just up on end, just going, yeah, actually I've been part of that solution, and that's what I've done for the client is made that a seamless process.
That's really interesting. Like most other people have actually like called out a specific job, but I think that's so true. Like for people that come from that kind of production manager background, there's a certain element of the entire process that that's exciting every single time. That's really cool. So obviously this whole conversation is about the fact that things have changed, things are changing, things keep changing on a daily basis at the moment. Um, what would you say has been the biggest or has had the biggest impact on your working life since this whole situation came about?
The biggest challenge is definitely kids.
Yes.
Working in this environment with kids, and sort of going from being head teacher to parent to best friend to then trying to work and guide your team and teach them a new skill set. Um, is tough. There's no denying that. But I've just said about challenges, so I've dug my own grave that one.
Absolutely. It's quite interesting. Can I just pick up on one thing you said there? So, leading a team. So tell us a little bit about your job. Your actual what job do you do and how does that work?
So I'm head of production for First and Clive, as I've just said. So we are a global agency and deliver events from different sectors, from private equity through to technology or B2C customers as well. So we work on activations, but mainly it's been in that event environment. Um, However, we have actually got this virtual or digital offering that can easily translate. So it's about working out the skill sets that everyone has and putting them into a different environment.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with your team in particular, and as you try to kind of lead a team, like what would you say are those skills that they need, or like what would you say is kind of the key skill, or a lot of people watching this series are often in the freelance community as well. Like what would you say are those kind of skills that people need to kind of try and aim towards?
Yeah, so and I've had this conversation with some of my peers within the industry. The most called out skill set we need at the moment is adaptability. Is
Yeah.
Are people who are willing to just go, yeah, you need me to do that. Let's do this. Let's get it done. This is the challenge. So, and I'm going to be part of that solution.
And so just to dig into that a little bit, so when you say adaptability, like what is it? I guess I come across quite a lot of people in our industry who would often describe themselves as very adaptable because, we work with different teams in different countries with different locations. So we almost specialize, I guess, in adapting. Are there particular ways in which people should be looking to adapt with this current
I think
situation?
you've hit the nail exactly on the head. We already do this. There's already a whole host of people within our community who deliver on their adaptability side. They whether it's and a call out to you, Dave, flying a car on top of a hotel or turning the Excel into a hospital. You know, these are skill sets we already have within our industry, and uh, at the moment we're working in a virtual digital world. That's what's happening right now, and whether that lasts until the 1st of June to July through till September, we don't know. What we know is what's happening today, and being adaptable in this market of going, okay, how are we going to get Joe to broadcast on YouTube from his shed in his garden and have a conversation with Dave? So that adaptable, there's no specifics there because there doesn't need to be a specific there. It's about working out the situation we are in and working out how you can be part of that solution.
So there's almost like you're saying there's almost like a drive there, a drive to be adaptable, a drive to do whatever it kind of takes to change whatever it is that you need to change, so that you can be working in whatever this new environment happens to be, because it will include different ways of working. What's your gut? I know it's an impossible question, but I am asking everybody. Like, what's your gut, or what are you starting to plan for in terms of timescales here? Are you talking about some stuff possibly in the coming months or whatever, but like when do you see things starting to in some way return to a new normal?
I think that's the crystal ball question, isn't it? It's working out where do you forecast for, and at the moment we're in a situation where we don't forecast much past the next month or two. We can have a sight of, okay, let's base our figures, for example, on returning to work in June 2021. So some of our clients have said that's going to be the first time there's going to be any sort of mass engagement.
Yeah.
Um, but realistically, we don't know.
No.
As much as this has devastated our industry in such quick succession, it can also come back in such quick succession as well, or it could be a prolonged period. No one knows.
Do you see any sort of particular areas of the industry coming back? One of the conversations I had with Paul Dawson last week, who's an exec producer, was he was talking about like in his experience where he'd seen things, the events industry affected after 9/11 and affected hugely after, the financial crisis as well, as people kind of cut back. He kind of pivoted to make sure he was getting government work. He kind of saw that there would still be work in events for the government, whereas a lot of other industries may be cutting back. Like, do you have any sense of if people should be focusing their attention on certain types of events, or obviously there's the virtual thing that you mentioned, but I suppose that's going to be a very, very noisy marketplace over the coming months and year. What's your sense on that?
I think there's going to be a great influx of new solutions.
Yeah.
Um, and whether that be in virtual form or digital form or real life hybrid, who knows? But I
Mm.
think that there's only going to be a certain amount of time that people are going to accept the situation or the status quo as it is at the moment. And we've already seen activations on platforms such as Minecraft and Fortnite as
Yep.
gaming engines, actually creating these events or these activations, experiences, however you want to call them,
Yeah.
in within those platforms.
Yeah.
And their reach is unbelievable. It's like 12 million people for a certain activation, and you're like, well, if you're looking at that,
If that's your demographic, it's an
that
amazing audience, right?
but does that need to be your certain demographic?
Yeah. Yeah. Does
So
it
that's the
match? Does it
question.
fit? Yeah.
Yeah. So Fortnite, for example, will hit a certain demographic, sure, but there's also lots of different other platforms which hit particular demographics.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think there's opportunity there within
Definitely.
many of business sector
Yeah.
for pushing us forward as an
Yeah.
industry.
But also interestingly, if I just pick you up on that, the what you're describing there is actually there are online audiences out there already. You need to go and find them. Do you see what I mean? If your demographic plays Fortnite, then there's a massive audience there that's open to be, that's there to be reached. If your demographic is different, then they probably have an online presence somewhere in some way these days, and it's a case of getting out there to find them, right?
Absolutely, and within any sector, there's thought leaders, and those thought leaders will still want to communicate in this current state of affairs. So,
Yeah.
as you said about the government is still communicating, there's still businesses need to communicate with their stakeholders, whether that be internal or external.
So looking to the future, what do you think will be different? Like, what do you think will be better? Like, I want to try and keep some of it to there's a lot of negativity in the world at the moment. I want to try and keep some positive spin on some of this stuff. Like, are there any elements that you think will be significantly different, things that will change and won't necessarily ever go back to how they were? And are there any of those things that you think will be better?
I think there's a whole host of opportunity for things to be better. I mean, I don't think we were ever in a bad situation. Um, I think as an industry, we possibly got it quite good. We got to travel the world
Yep.
and sort of deliver these events. And if it's your passion, as it is mine, to be part of that problem solving, um, whilst being in good company, so parts of that will come back. Absolutely, there's events have been part of our society from the beginning of time. Um, but there'll be elements which don't come back, and there'll be possibly these smaller meetings. And from a procurement point of view, are you going to send someone to a particular meeting for an hour, or are you now going to direct them into doing a Zoom meeting or any other platform? Um, so I think there's a whole, as I said, there's a whole host of opportunity there for those smaller events, and possibly for people who don't want to travel so much. There's going to be more opportunity. Um, but we will get back to some sort of normality. Just when that is, no one really knows.
That's brilliant. That's a really amazing, really positive message. Like the amount of opportunity that's out there as things change. It just all it requires of us is to be adaptable, and to make sure that we continue to adapt on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. Whatever is required of us. Um, just kind of in closing, like what would you say is either the best piece of work advice you've ever been given, or do you have like a particular message for the live events community that you want to share?
Um, I'm not sure how much this will make sense to everyone, but my best bit of work advice. Um, Part of my career, I was a labourer when I was 17, 18. To earn some money, and having never been on a building site before, I was digging these trenches for some foundations, digging them up, getting a shovel full of dirt, and then walking that shovel over to the bucket and putting it in a bucket. Um, and my boss at the time just looked around at me and went, "Joe, take the bucket to Mohammed." And at the time, I was like, I didn't know really what that meant. So I then looked it up, and obviously the saying, take Mohammed to the mountain. And from that, I was sort of just took from it. So always look for the most efficient way possible to deliver. Don't don't try and make it harder for yourself.
Hmm,
So that's the
brilliant.
best bit of work and advice I've ever had and kept with me throughout my career. Again, like makes probably little sense to everyone else, but makes
No, not at
perfect
all.
sense
I
to
mean,
me.
keep it simple, and sometimes something really obvious can make a massive difference to what you're doing. Um,
Exactly. And I think from a sort of message to the live events industry is just like refocus. Yeah, it's bad, but you you're in a situation that you've always been in. You're always been in this situation of, here's a challenge. What's the solution? Everyone knows how to do it. So just refocus on the platform that you're going to be doing it on.
Amazing. That's really brilliant. Thank you very much, Joe, for joining me today. It was such an interesting conversation and so positive. It was really good. We'd love to hear from different people around the industry. We'd love to, whether you're in logistics, whether you're in production, whether you're in any part of the live events industry, we'd love to hear from you. So please get in touch if you'd like to join this discussion live. Tomorrow, I'm talking to Alan Law on some of the health and safety aspects. So please get your questions in the comment section for that as well. But just to say thank you very much indeed, Joe, for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Mate.